students passed away sometime after the destruction. While the destruction, the subsequent exile, was a major blow to the Jewish people, Jewish nation, there was always the Torah that kept us strong, giving us vital energy to be able to survive the long and bitter exile. And yet, because of the lack of respect between these students, the world was left barren and almost completely bereft of this key. And this is the reason why we still mourn their passing. But rather, it is a blow to our very essence and vital, and that for that reason we have this semi-mourning. And yet, from tragedy springs hope. After this incident, not only did Rabbi Akiva not give up teaching Torah, but some of our greatest rabbis, including Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai and Rabbi Meir, are listed among his new disciples, thus ensuring the continuity of our Torah traditions. So the period of counting the Yoma is a time of national mourning. And I want to share with you the importance of Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Akiva, he was the leader. He had a fascinating life, a man of humble origins who overcame it all to achieve greatness. And I'm sharing this with you today because each one of us can model after a personal role model to all of us from the famous Rabbi Akiva. Number one, he was of humble origins. Rabbi Akiva began his life as a shepherd. He was entirely unlearned until his middle years. He likewise had no Jewish lineage to speak of. He descended from converts. As he rose to the greatness in his latest years, he never forgot who he was and where he came from. His favorite principle was love your fellow as yourself. Rich or poor, simple or scholarly, tall or short, strong or weak, we're all God's children. God and his Torah are not the monopoly of the wise or the well-pedigreed. We're all precious in the eyes of God. The second lesson that we can learn and identify with Rabbi Akiva, he saw inspiration, he acted on it. The Medrash tells us, records a turning point in his life. One day at the age of 40, Rabbi Akiva passed a well. He saw a rock with a hole carved into it. He inquired who shaped the rock and was told it was caused by the slow but constant dripping of water on top of it. Drop, drop, drop. Rabbi Akiva reasoned, if a substance soft as water can penetrate the rock with slow, persistent motion, so too the Torah, which is as hard as iron, can slowly but surely penetrate my heart. This was to Rabbi Akiva a turning point. He promptly set off to study Torah for an uninterrupted 24 years. So many times in our lives we are moved by inspiring words or events. We know that they are speaking to us, that God has a message to us, yet the inspiration fades before we do anything about it, and life moves on. Not Rabbi Akiva. He saw his moment, and he changed his life right there and then. Wow, what an amazing lesson for all of us too. Doesn't matter how old we are or how young we are, we all have moments that we must grab and use and grow. A third lesson I can identify with Rabbi Akiva is he patiently started from the bottom. When Rabbi Akiva went to study, he did not exactly hire a private tutor or join an adult study program, nor did he sign up for an anonymous online course. The Medrash describes how he, together with his youngest son, went to the Cheder, went to the Jewish school to learn the Aleph Beis together with the younger children. And his past humility showed. He wasn't fazed by the awkwardness of being the youngest in the class of his small children. He was an older. He didn't care for his own dignity. He set right out to work. A fourth important aspect, Rabbi Akiva, that you and me can identify is he was no super genius. It is not as if Rabbi Akiva really had an IQ of 180 all along, but was just withering on the vine during his years as a shepherd. He had to work and work hard to become what he was. The Talmud records a meeting Rabbi Akiva had with a monumental scholar to discuss a debate that they had about on a touchy subject in Jewish law. The other scholar was the raving genius type. No one could keep him up with him in his arguments, not even Rabbi Akiva, by then the acknowledged leader of his generation. The other scholar, after Rabbi Akiva failed to convince him, had nothing but snide remarks for the supposed leading scholar of the generation. But as the Talmud continues, it didn't faze Akiva in the slightest. He was still the shepherd turned scholar. He had no airs about him whatsoever. Wow, powerful thoughts we learn from Rabbi Akiva during this time. And a fifth idea of Rabbi Akiva is he asked all the tough questions. Rabbi Akiva, in spite of his late start, had a distinct advantage over his colleagues. Unlike they who began their study as small children, he came to it as an adult. And as a result, he approached the Torah with mature eyes. Nothing was taken for granted or viewed as, well, it's just the way things are. Rabbi Akiva probed every aspect of Judaism and discovered truths where other people failed even to look. So Rabbi Akiva, we find Rabbi Akiva posing some of the most profound questions in life. We read it in Pirkei Avos this coming week. He grapples with the contradiction between man's free will and God's knowledge of the future. If God already knows what I will do tomorrow, do I really have the free will to decide? He also discusses in Pirkei Avos how God governs and judges the world. The Medrash describes Rabbi Akiva as a persistent student, leaving no issue unexplored and unexplained. His colleague characterized him with the following comment: matters hidden from people, Rabbi Akiva brought to light. And here's one that is very important for all of us to hear. I put it in the following way: his success was all because of his wife, and he knew it. So much Rabbi Akiva's greatness was on account of his devoted wife, Rachel. She discovered him. He served as a shepherd for one of the wealthiest men of his time, Kalba Savua. Kalba's daughter took a liking to this humble shepherd, whom she saw as a modest and refined person. She proposed to him on condition that he agreed to study Torah. He agreed, and they married secretly. Kalba promptly disavowed his daughter, and for years the young couple lived in abject poverty. This is written up in the Talmud. If not for Rachel, Akiva would have no doubt remained an anonymous shepherd with little future. But she believed in him. Rachel left a life of fabulous wealth to make home for Akiva because she knew he could become great. And she had the faith and the patience to see it happen. And when he was ready, she encouraged him to leave home to study, which he did for an uninterrupted 12 years. Can you imagine? But that was only half of it. The Talmud continues. On his return, already an accomplished scholar, Rabbi Akiva was about to enter his home. Just then he overhears a conversation. An elderly man challenges Rachel. How long would you live as a widow with your husband alive? She responds, if my husband would listen to me, he would remain another 12 years in yeshiva. On that providential note, Rabbi Akiva was listening to this, returns for another 12 years of study. At last, after 24 years, Rabbi Akiva returns home, now a leading scholar of his generation, escorted by an entourage of 24,000 students. His wife, still dressed in her simple house clothes, goes out to greet him. She falls, she presents herself. It creates a scene. An elderly woman thrusting herself before the great rabbi, who is surrounded by devoted students. They move to push her away. Rabbi Akiva stops her and utters a line which has since become very famous. Leave her. What is mine and what is yours is hers. Remember that, dear friends. Let us remember the blessings that we have come from our spouse, because what is mine and what is yours is hers. This is what Rabbi Akiva said in recognition for her encouragement of turning him from a shepherd turned to scholar, and became one of the greatest Jewish leaders. He never forgot his origins. Wow. Rabbi Akiva made it in every sense of the word. By the end of his life, he was an acknowledged spiritual leader of world Jewry. He became wealthy. He was revered and admired by all. His opinion was sought and regarded by all matters. Yet he never forgot where he came from. He was still one of the masses. He knew what it was like to be poor, to be unknown, and to be unlearned. And his love for humanity showed. What was his favorite verse from Leviticus 19:18? Love your fellow as yourself. He states, beloved is man, for he was created in the image of God. Wow. We're all precious to God. What an important lesson in the world that we live in. There is no favoritism in heaven. Rabbi Akiva, in fact, well remembered his past, problems that he had in learning. He knew what it was like to be coarse and ignorant, and he remembered the resentment, feeling that he was part of the underprivileged classes. But he had patience and love for all, because he was one of them. And he realized how difficult it is to outgrow one's past mindset, and therefore he didn't, judge anybody around. He just kept on going. Even as we mentioned earlier, the reason for the mourning during this period of time, he lost an astounding 24,000 students because they did not respect each other. And therefore, during these several weeks between Pesach, Passover, and Shavuos, we have a semi-mourning period. But nevertheless, as we mentioned earlier on, he kept on going. He did not give up. He witnessed so much loss, and yet he continued to be what he was and continued to make, Judaism great again. He picked himself up and started again. And the Talmud says he found 5 new students. Those 5 replaced the 24,000. Rather than attempting to amass students without number, he focused on these 5 precious souls who would, between them, restore the Torah to its past glory. No doubt Rabbi Akiva never recovered from the pain of the loss. As we saw, his way was to ponder the most difficult questions of life. Yet he didn't let his inability to explain stand in the way of his life's mission. What an important thing. We all have questions in life that we cannot answer. Even with his greatest intellect, or perhaps because of it, Rabbi Akiva was no exception. But questions and doubts did not stop him. The rabbi's intellect was far from, pacified, but he just kept on going, and ultimately he persevered. Dear friends, on this very special day, Rabbi Akiva did end his life in a difficult way. He lost his life to the terrible Romans of that time. Nevertheless, during this period of time, let us remember Rabbi Akiva and the impact he had on Jewish life, and how we, even though he died a hero's death, nevertheless, he left us with an amazing living legacy that you and me must continue on and appreciate in making this world a better place through acts of goodness and kindness. Dear friends, this is Rabbi Pearl speaking to you from 90.3 right here at Nassau Community College, reminding everyone to join us next Sunday. Make a point, Sunday, May the 7th, to join us for the Gardening Secrets. Join us for a horticultural trip and training into vegetable gardening in your backyard or in containers. It's a free lecture with Linda Levy. She is Long Island's champion jumbo tomato grower. Each one of us will learn easy ways to methods how to plant, fertilize, and produce jumbo vegetables. And everybody, this is the most exciting, light brunch, no charge, men and women are welcomed, all ages, everyone goes home with a tomato plant. Life couldn't be better than that. Dear friends, this is your host, Rabbi Pearl, wishing you a good week, a guten Chodesh, all the blessed, sei gesund, a good year. Until next week, Shalom.